Hey, Gavin.
Hey, Louie.
Oh my God, girl. Can you believe it? We're here 2021.
I cannot. Everything has changed. But suddenly, everything has changed. Louie, how are you?
I am good. I'm drinking a full peacharita. So I'm not well, bitch.
That is a well drink.
It's an unwell drink. Let's be real. I'm not an alcoholic, but I feel like drinking these specifically, they make you feel so bad. These have become like sippers. I cannot, and this is like a tall boy. Like I am gonna die if I chug this. But we've made it to 2021. I feel like everyone's kind of dusting off the crust of, the holiday rest period. Hopefully everyone out there had a nice little siesta. But we're here. Hello. Hi, everyone. This is The Mixed Reviews.
We are a film podcast where we take a film subject, such as an actor, director, or a mini genre, or in this case, a year in review, and we give you a history, and then we tell you what we liked and what we didn't like.
Yes, this is our fan favorite year in review.
This is basically our Academy Awards. We've got our little gold men, though they're all wearing masks because we know it's COVID times.
Right. I keep my little gold men very neatly, arranged, a diorama, if you will.
Well, mine charge $500 an hour, so we need to speed this up.
Wow, that's pricey in this economy. That's one stimulus check.
Well done. Well, before we move anywhere further into this stimulating conversation, we should move into some old business.
Yes.
Before moving into the year that was 2020.
Absolutely. Last episode, hi, hello. Last episode, we had a bonus episode.
Oh my God, we did.
So our last episode was actually a little bonus content. We had a little chit chat with Sam Golzari, a star of American Dreams. That's Dreams with a Z, which we talked about in our Mandy Moore episode. But we might have more little bonus things.
We love a good bonus, and we hope you guys enjoy them. And what's cool about being able to do these is, we run this show that's about film, but it's also about performances and actors and their process. And we talk about that a lot. And so it's cool to actually be able to talk to some actors about some of the things that they've done. And so that was one of the things I loved about listening to that Sam Golzari interview, was that I got to hear, really what it was like for him, especially in that specific time period, playing this character, this sort of divisive character in this divisive comedy.
Yeah. And also just like, I don't know, I loved hearing him say, for me, the movie was a success. It was my American dream. And he bears no ill will about like how it was recepted or how well it did. You kind of get the sense he's been around the block in Hollywood and sees how it is. And he's like, that it got made at all was a success. And so, thanks to Sam and to you, Gavin, for I texted you very randomly with that. And you said, let's do it, bitch.
I honestly deserve no thanks. I genuinely, it's all you and Sam. And just genuinely, if you haven't gone back to listen to that episode yet, I highly recommend it. It's very good.
2 episodes ago, our last regular episode, we talked about the queen of the holiday season, I would say for 2020, Miss Dolly Parton, legend and icon for all seasons. And we asked you guys to vote online for your favorite Dolly Parton movie, and the results are in. 7% voted for other, which included a very, very early vote for Rhinestone.
Jim Talks actually wrote into us to say very early, before we even put up the poll, to say, I'd like to vote early for my favorite Dolly movie before I forget. Despite the negative reviews, my favorite Dolly movie is Rhinestone. This is where nostalgia comes into play because I would watch it over and over with my mom, and it always made us smile.
Yeah, see, I love that.
I love it too. Yeah, it's not a good movie, Jim. I'm sorry. But it's great there's plenty of movies I really love that are not good movies because I've attached really beautiful memories to them. So I absolutely get it.
Yeah, exactly. We also had some people talk about Straight Talk. And so those were our other votes. My pick, The Best Little Whorehouse in Texas, came in at third place with 11%. Steel Magnolias came in at 33%. And then Gavin's pick, 9 to 5, came in first place with 49%. You guys love that 9 to 5?
It's very good. I would like to say that both my sister and her mother-in-law commented on Facebook that if they had Twitter, they would vote for Steel Magnolias. So maybe they would have pushed it over the edge. You never know.
Manish also wrote he wants to give a shout out to Best Little Whorehouse, but he voted for something else.
I mean, I get it. And Best Little Whorehouse is great. It's one of those things where, like, when she's firing on all cylinders, when she's like given the opportunity to light up the screen and really play a character, you know, that's like 50% Dolly, 50%, you know, her just having a good time. There's no wrong choice.
I mean, and also, like, all three of those movies are just so fun, so good.
Yeah.
All classics. American canon. So thank you, Dolly. I believe I read she's taking a rest for this year, and it's well deserved.
Oh, it's absolutely well deserved. Yeah.
But if we're done with old business now, I think it's time to dive right into the cool waters of what was the year in film cinema of 2020.
So 2020 was, as we know, the year in which theater died.
Yes. R.I.P.
R.I.P.
Theater was dead and then was reborn on TikTok. Ratatouille, which I think should have been named Ratatouille the Musical in the vein of Seussical the Musical, but I'm not going to get mad about it.
I'm just stunned in silence.
Ratatouille the Musical?
Yes.
Okay, listen, let's get it trending. Let's get it going.
And you know what? I can't be mad at that, because I was really upset when the sequel to The Equalizer was not called The Sequelizer. And now that Queen Latifah's going to have her show, there probably won't be a third movie, which should be called The Threequalizer.
People just aren't thinking right.
Yeah, exactly. Why aren't we ad execs? So 2020 was a year that was chaos for film. Obviously, in America, when the pandemic hit, nobody knew quite what anything was going to be like, whether it's truly a failure of our government, which it is, or a failure of our media. It's one of those things that I really, no one was prepared for it. Nobody knew what to do. Theaters shut down. We both live in New York City. Yeah. Our theaters are still shut down. They have never reopened. And I think a lot of people thought this is going to be the death knell for the theatrical experience when it comes to movies.
Right.
On top of that, you know, we predicted last year that we were moving more towards that inflection point in which streaming was going to be a major player. Mm-hmm. And
surprise, bitch.
Yeah, exactly. This year, it became the only player. It's the only game in town. And so I think we're going to have an interesting conversation about, you know, the state of film going into 2021 by having a look back at 2020.
We did talk about basically like the democratization of like watching more period, but also in like being able to see more of these like smaller movies, high art movies that maybe would not penetrate all places across the US. Now literally anyone can go to their laptop and start streaming stuff that they probably would never even had the chance to, like, not even like, you know, didn't want to but didn't get the chance to. And we talked about that last year, and looking at the slate of films this year, it's like you could watch literally the New York Film Festival was streaming movies, you know, you could go like drive-ins and stuff like that.
Yeah.
All these, you could, and now like Sundance, they're going to be selling tickets for people to stream movies. You don't have to go to Utah to Sundance and to watch these movies. And that's huge. That's such a big change for how we consume film.
And that should be pretty interesting. And I know there's probably some critics who won't love that.
Oh yeah, I mean, there's always gonna be gatekeepers,
but I think it's gonna be very interesting going forward.
Mm-hmm. We had maybe 2.5 months of quote normal life. I believe the last movie I saw in theaters was Sonic the Hedgehog. Is that right?
The last film I saw in theaters was First Cow on March 12th.
I might have seen Emma after that, though. I definitely remember seeing Emma at the Draft House. So yeah, my last movies were Emma and Sonic the Hedgehog, and you know,
both literary classics.
I mean, truly icons in their own way. One's faster than the other, though. So
Yeah, Emma can really run.
Yeah, she is a speedy Gonzalez. So, you know, there was like, and what's funny is like, I remember at the beginning of the pandemic, people were saying like, oh, if the Oscars were right now, like what were the movies that would, you know, win everything? And it was such like a small little nugget.
Yeah. I mean, the running gag since then has been Harley Quinn.
Right. Birds of Prey was going to win everything. And especially, you know, the Oscars have moved their, you know, deadlines. I mean, the movies of, quote, 2020, we must kind of put a big asterisk on, because so many of the movies, and we're not talking about like, oh, we're not seeing In the Heights or West Side Story or, you know, all those big tentpole movies that truly have just been pushed away, like Black Widow, whatever. But there are a lot of Oscar baity movies that still want to do a qualifying run, but fully will not be out for the public to watch until like February and March, which is insane.
Yeah.
And so we're talking about like, you know, movies that we love that, quote, like in big air quotes, big asterisk, came out in 2020, but truly, you know, like even something as like big as Nomadland will not be out for a long time. Right. People will not be able to, and for whatever reason, you know, the distributor is like, they're not putting this anywhere for people to watch right now, which is a shame. But, you know, so a big like buffer on this conversation, because, you know, what we got instead was, I don't know, the prom.
All right. So I think that brings us to our rewind. So why don't we get into the past of 2020? Last year at this time, we had already had the Golden Globes. Mm-hmm. So we were able to talk about the Golden Globes. We were waiting until February 9th, which would have been the Academy Awards.
That's so insane. So, just to reiterate, the Academy Awards for this year will not be until April 25th.
Absolutely.
It's 2+ months later than usual.
January is never a strong movie month. You had things that came out like the remake of The Grudge, mm-hmm. Or the reboot, whatever you want to call it, Like a Boss, which was the
the Salma Hayek,
Tiffany Haddish, Rose Byrne. From what I've heard, disaster.
Oh, you didn't enjoy that?
Yeah. Coming strong, January 17th, you have Bad Boys for Life and Doolittle. Doolittle,
Yikes.
which is, an unmitigated disaster.
Yeah.
I imagine it's a bit tender, yeah?
Oh.
I'm unarmed. I pose no threat to you. Emotional stress over the years has done damage to your stomach. Get away from me! You have a severe impaction of the colon, and if it don't manually fragment it, it'll go septic. You won't be able to protect anything anymore.
Ooh, that sounds like some tummy ache.
Tell you what, give us 5 minutes. If you don't feel better, you can fry us all.
Stop talking. Just get on with it.
But Bad Boys for Life is currently the highest grossing American film of 2020.
That's bonkers. I mean,
yeah,
and especially
it made $206 million.
Compared to like what, and 2 years ago, Avengers, whatever the fuck it was called, made $1 billion.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to give you some perspective, Sonic the Hedgehog by Charlotte Bronte came in second place in domestic gross with $146 million. So,
I mean, thank goodness, I guess these like kind of B-list tentpoles were moved out into like the winter, I guess. But I guess that's also because this summer we were going to have, you know, Black Widow was going to come out. Mulan was supposed to come out.
Yeah. Wonder Woman 84 was supposed to go to theaters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tenet.
And there, Tenet. Yeah.
Remember Tenet? Lol.
The movie that was going to save cinema. You know, you mentioned Sonic the Hedgehog. That comes out in February.
It was Valentine's Day. I remember it. It was a date night.
Guess I had a bonus life. Oh, yeah, baby. A Sonic 1, a Big Tank 0. I'm sorry. Did we get that on camera?
How are you not dead?
I have no idea. Do you see me dancing?
Yes, I saw you dance.
Is that all you got?
No, but thank you for asking.
At that point, we actually had the Oscars, and it was a huge movie moment because Parasite, which we talked about extensively in our last year's roundup, won Best Picture.
Mm-hmm.
And the Oscar goes to Parasite.
And it was one of those moments where I was curmudgeon. I was like, I'm not gonna fucking watch this shit. They're never gonna give it to the right movie. It's gonna be the fucking Sam Mendes 1917 bullshit.
Oh God! Imagine anyone thinking people will be talking about.
It won the Golden Globe, Louie.
I know, but no one. You said the words 1917, and I said, was that a movie?
Yeah, you're like, do I know her?
Yeah. But Parasite, she was the girl. She was the moment. Everyone was talking about that movie.
She stood up, she took off her glasses, took off her overalls, and she was gorgeous.
She was gorgeous.
But yeah, I mean, it's funny to see something deservedly win. Yeah, and I think that started off what everybody thought was going to be a great year for cinema. It's going to be the moment. It's going to be, March comes along, people start getting hints that things aren't going great.
And also but also just thinking by Easter we'll be fine. It's no one ever could have, no one was predicting that it would be this long.
Right. Well, I mean, you look at early March, you get things like Swallow and First Cow, these indie films that are coming out to theaters. Even late February, you get The Invisible Man, which is a big Hollywood movie, but also a very micro budgeted film.
Right.
And you see these things as not a care in the world. It's business as normal. We're going to do our thing. And then you see other things like Onward, Pixar's first big venture of the year, suddenly is just on Disney Plus.
Yeah.
And then Bloodshot, which is Columbia Pictures' big move into the superhero genre with the Valiant comic character Bloodshot, is suddenly on demand.
Yeah.
After being in the theater.
Right. For a minute. Because I remember, but First Cow, Emma, Never Rarely, Sometimes Always, they all had these tiny, tiny little openings. And then, obviously everything shut down and were quickly moved online. But I think we're all waiting, what are they going to do with Onward? What are they going to do with Bloodshot? These are bigger movies. And then, of course, even looking further down the road, people were like, no, Tenet's coming out for sure. No, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And the first big film to test the water for any of this was Trolls World Tour.
Yeah.
And we did a whole episode on DreamWorks Animation, so you know my opinion of the Trolls. But Universal and DreamWorks decide to put it out on March 17th. They announced that it would be simultaneously released in theaters and for digital rental on April 10th in the United States and Canada due to the pandemic. And Trolls World Tour, I believe, had only been released in Russia at that point.
Big market there with Trolls.
It's Singapore and Malaysia. They actually have them there. So that's they're we don't need to go to the theater. In Russia, Troll watch you. Sorry. And it was a huge gamble for them to do this. And AMC Theaters stated they would not license anything from NBC Universal, and Regal Cinemas followed suit. Huge Universal ban. And
right, but they were mostly pissed off though because it made so much money.
Right, exactly.
If it was First Cow, if First Cow is distributors, which I don't know who it is, but a small thing, no one was well, we're never gonna show an A24 movie ever again. But no, because this was a Universal movie, and because it made over $100 million, which had never happened before for a movie. This is thinking about the first days of the fucking iTunes store, when all of a sudden people are buying 99-cent songs and, the CD fucking companies are pissed off. This is just, we're seeing such a radical shift. And yeah, of course, so the theaters freaked the fuck out. People aren't already going to go see movies because they can't, and now they have basically no product.
So Trolls World Tour ends up being this unmitigated success. You know, makes $50 million in domestic revenue within the first 6 days. By April, it had made over $100 million. It made more than the original Trolls movie. Based on foreign territories alone, it ends up pulling in $44.7 million. So it was a gamble that really paid off. And like you said, people wouldn't have been so mad about it if it hadn't been making money. You know, one of the controversies that surrounded it was that, you know, Anna Kendrick and Justin Timberlake were not made aware that the film was going to be on VOD release.
Yeah.
And they were essentially promised bonuses if the film performed really well theatrically. And they weren't going to get those bonuses because it wasn't playing theatrically, even though it was. But, you know, the income was never going to be that much. It's funny because this is one of the few movies that was out during that time. It ended up being number one at the box office for multiple weeks.
Hey, man. There he is. King Trollex of the Techno Trolls, right?
That's right. Who's asking?
Queen Barb of the Hard Rock Trolls. And I'm here to take your string, bro.
No way.
Ooh, don't do it, man.
If we lose our string, we lose our music.
It would be interesting to know if we lived in a place like there are no theaters that we can go see right now, Gavin. If we wanted to go to a movie theater, we'd have to drive to Pennsylvania or something. I don't know.
Yeah. I think there's some places in Jersey because I think I've seen some people that I've sort of been like silently scowling at going to theaters in New Jersey wearing like this is the thing, guys. And this is a small sideways diatribe. Listen, just because a place is open doesn't mean you have to go there. Right. And if you're going to go to a theater, I get it. You can put your fucking mask on. But you know what? All those other people, they have to be there because they're getting paid. And they're just people that you are potentially fucking over.
Yeah.
And I get it. Everybody's trying to be safe. I totally get it. But like, I don't know. Just think about other people.
And I get like wanting to get out of the house, but like if you're driving to a theater or whatever, like just drive around. Like go.
Yeah.
You don't have to go to a theater. I mean, so yes, I wonder what it is like to go to a theater right now. I would not go to one, but like to the movie going experience right now doesn't seem like something I'd want to do anyway, you know?
Yeah.
There is no movie good enough for like, I remember the news stories were coming out like, I braved the coronavirus to see Tenet the way it was supposed to be. And it's like, lol, who cares?
It's like, calm down, Tom Cruise.
Yeah.
We saw your video.
Yeah.
Great to be back in a movie theater, everybody. I loved it.
You got to sort of see everybody scramble a bit and sort of figure out what to do with their properties. And so you see things like the sort of low budget but slightly higher production value musical remake of Valley Girl go on demand. You see things like Scoob, the computer animated Warner Brothers Pictures film go on demand. The Lovebirds got shuffled to Netflix.
Yep.
The High Note became available from Focus Features for on demand. And it's just interesting to see how quickly people sort of began partnering off with these streaming services and also figuring out who owns what in terms of streaming services. Like HBO Max hadn't been out yet. You know, this eventually we're going to get to HBO Max in the middle of the summer, but you have mostly Warner Brothers properties there. Hulu is now a Disney property or has been a Disney property for a while. So you get a lot of things more adult Disney
You
oriented
basically
to there.
get like all the Fox things that Disney doesn't want to put on Disney Plus.
Exactly. And it's interesting. It's just sort of interesting to see the scramble, to see how quickly everybody, you know, and there were things that were supposed to get, you know, theatrical runs in June. On June 12th, you get The Five Bloods, which we talked about in our Spike Lee episode, which was supposed to have a theatrical run, even though it's a Netflix film.
Right. And that movie, you know, there is the pandemic, but also this summer there was so much conflict and uprising and talking about you know, Black justice. And I mean, I remember very viscerally, Gavin, you and me recording our Angela Bassett episode, and both of us just like feeling so defeated and like useless. And I think a lot of the country was feeling defeated and useless like that one specific weekend. And a movie like Da 5 Bloods, I mean, there was a lot of great Black theater and film happening this year. And so I am grateful for these movies that kind of were like picking up the mirror, you know, reflecting the culture back to us and giving us an outlet for these kind of emotions. Like, it was a catharsis almost.
Yeah.
And so, you know, even though Da 5 Bloods didn't get its theatrical run, like, I'm very glad that we got to see it on Netflix.
Talking about Dr. King. We're talking about a man of peace.
And that's what got Dr. King killed.
I'm as mad as everybody. All us Bloods got a right to be, but we Bloods. Don't let nobody use our rage against us. We control our rage. And what y'all trying to do right now ain't changing shit. So stand down. That's an order.
I mean, like, the movies that we would have seen in the summer, you know, we were going to see In the Heights. We were going to see Wonder Woman. We were going to see Tenet. There were a lot of things that either went away for, like, a long time. Like, when will we see you in the Heights? I don't know. And then there were the little shuffle, the shuffle babies. It was, you know, Wonder Woman maybe got 10,000 release dates before settling on the Christmas HBO thing. But I guess also, like you said, summer is when HBO Max revealed Thine Self. And has become a huge hub for all these Warner Brothers properties, and will continue to. I mean, apparently, you know, going into next year.
And while, you know, Tenet becomes this sort of beacon that they keep pushing, you know, you do get these, like you said, new streaming service that really, not that we're not sponsored by HBO Max, but HBO Max is pretty great. It has maybe the best library of most streaming services. It's the one I think Netflix should really sort of watch out for.
Yeah. It's a higher price point, but like deservedly so. Like, it's worth the extra $7 or whatever.
But it's so interesting to see that happen. And while that is happening for the theatrical release, when people are still scrambling, confused, and trying to figure out when theaters are going to be able to reopen, Disney has an amazing hit that occurs in July with Hamilton.
Yeah.
Now, this is going to lead to a separate conversation, which is, what do you consider a film and what do you consider just a taped stage show?
Right. We talked a little bit earlier about this. Like, on Letterboxd, I saw people were like reviewing Hamilton, and I was like, wait, what? Because we had, I don't want to say a glut. There is like a micro trend that maybe will continue and turn into the norm, where filmed stage productions of Broadway and theater shows are available to stream. We had What the Constitution Means to Me on Amazon, Hamilton on Disney, and American Utopia on HBO Max. And those are unique compared to, say, The Boys in the Band on Netflix, The Prom on Netflix, and other
adaptations.
Correct. Of stage productions.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's film. I don't, for me, I think you are watching a stage production. The costuming, the lighting, that is all done by theater professionals. There is a director, like Spike Lee directed American Utopia for HBO Max.
And I will say, I want to commend both Spike Lee and Mariel Heller, who did What the Constitution Means to Me for Amazon, because I do think that they both, as directors, really elevated the way that those pieces are done, and they created this sort of nebulous space between a stage performance and a adaptation, because camera placement, the distance with the audience, the way that they sort of brought you in closer at the end of the day. And once again, I'm saying I loved both those things, so please don't come to me with your pitchforks and torches, but they are still taped stage shows. I reviewed them on Letterboxd. I'll admit it as well.
That was you, bitch.
But, yeah, it was me. I was the one who put them up too. But I don't know. So I do think it's an interesting conversation to have, because I think we might end up seeing more and more of this, maybe without audiences, until everything gets solved. You know, we are talking to you as of January 4th, 2021 right now. There is 2 vaccines currently, but the distribution in the US really sucks.
Slow. But also currently, you know, Diana the musical allegedly is coming to Netflix, and that's not an adaptation. It's going to be filmed in front of no audience, which will be different than, you know, the Hamilton, what we saw, because that was in front of an audience. Same with What the Constitution Means to Me. Some Broadway shows decide to film them in the hopes that maybe it'll be something later. They also film them for archival purposes. Not all of them do that, because it costs money to do that.
But a good majority of them do, because the Library of Congress wants copies.
Right. But that's not something that the layperson can just like go and like, oh, I'm going to rent the 1940 whatever of Oklahoma. Like, you can't do that. But now going forward, and there's a big conversation, I think, in the theatrical world about should that be, I mean, these shows cost so much and so few people will see them. And the access conversation is bleeding from film into theater, and like the reverse of that. And so I think the reverse of that is taped shows like that. Is that film? I don't know.
It's one of those things where you think to yourself, sometimes taped theatrical productions do go to theaters. I think that was the plan for Hamilton to begin with.
Yeah, for sure.
Was to bring, but I don't know how well What the Constitution Means to Me or American Utopia would have played in just your average theater. American Utopia maybe even more so in terms of like an audience reacting and having a good time than What the Constitution Means to Me. Once again, I love both of them. I'm not saying anything bad, but it's interesting to see that.
To your union, to the revolution, and the hope that you provide. May you always be satisfied.
And on the reverse side of that, you're getting things like on July 10th, The Old Guard comes out on Netflix. Now, this was a Netflix-produced movie, so this big action movie was always sort of meant for Netflix, but this was like a big screen action ensemble film.
Yes.
It starred Charlize Theron, and who we talked about before on the show, and I can't help, but I liked the way it looked and everything, but I can't help and wonder, wouldn't it have looked so much cooler on the big screen?
Yeah, I think that's probably the question for a lot of these movies, right?
Yeah,
but I don't know. It was fun seeing over the holiday break, I'll say, online, people at home who made their own theaters at home. I thought that was like a very charming and cute. I like this idea that people are able to make the theater their home.
Yes.
That they're bringing it, and it's truly special, you know, like I saw people who put up curtains and, you know, turned the lights down, had like their popcorn and soda, and like their family was together to watch, you know, Wonder Woman or Soul or whatever. I like that idea. And it feels so like you take out all the bureaucracy of and the corporatization of bullshit. Like, you know, like I don't have to buy the $8 fucking whatevers. And I liked that. I thought it was a very charming and cute, fun thing to do. And so, you know, to me, the theatrical experience of being with loved ones and watching I like that. I enjoy that. I will admit, though, you know, there was nothing like watching girls trip in a theater full of people and being rowdy, you know, and so there's room for it all, you know, like the pie is big enough. People are going to want to go see Avengers on the big screen, you know, but if you don't want to, like, we shouldn't have to, you know, like it's fine.
And it'll be interesting to see which sort of route everybody goes with once this is all over, or whatever form of this mutates into how things are going to be from now on. Because you get the hybrid version with Mulan, which was Disney's attempt to, you know, be like, hey, we're going to put it on Disney Plus. We have a streaming service, but we'd like you to pay $30 one-time fee. And my sister fucking did it because she was like, hey, I've got 3 kids.
Yeah.
And she's like, that's way cheaper than it would have been to get all these kids to the theater. And so I don't blame her. And then, of course, it eventually ends up on Disney Plus, but like, her kids got to see it months before.
Yeah. Us normals.
You know? Us normals. Oh, man. I hope it doesn't create this weird tiered society, a weird classes society. Anyways, we move into August, and August is finally when Warner Brothers relents. They're like, hey, things have been going well because everybody's locked themselves down. Come back to the theaters. They're releasing Tenet. The big story about this over the summer was the fact that it really seemed like, and obviously Louie and I were never there because they won't return our phone calls.
Dicks.
But Christopher Nolan seemed to be constantly pressuring Warner Brothers to make sure that this movie was a theatrical experience. And I get that. He made this movie to be a theatrical experience. I totally do. I think the problem is it comes off awfully cold when it's a very rich man saying, I don't give a shit about the health of the people who want to see the movie. I care more about the way the movie is presented.
We've talked about this before, and it's worth saying again, art is not more important than people.
Absolutely.
And like Christopher Nolan, like, your art is not more important than people. Girl.
And it's frustrating because I think it creates this sort of dichotomy with people where there's a group of people saying like, well, my health isn't worth going to go see your timey-wimey blockbuster bullshit in IMAX, versus the other people that say like, well, if you don't go, you're killing the theatrical industry. People are going to be out of jobs. People won't need to be spending, you know, all this money on movies, and everybody suffers because you don't go to the theaters. I'm not saying that. I love the theatrical experience when it's good. Sometimes there's some really bad audiences. But when the theatrical experience is really good, I love it. I love feeling the kinetic energy, the shared union of that experience and whatnot. But also, I'm not willing to put my health at risk. I'm not willing to put other people's health at risk to go enjoy 2 hours in a dark room when I could do it at home. I could just watch it at home. And that's what's frustrating is I don't think it's one or the other. I don't think it has to be one or the other. But I think for the moment, and what's wrong with living in the moment, because that's all we have, is we can't do that. We just can't.
And it wasn't a question of knowing going in. It was a question, as for every business and everybody's lives this year, of an evolving situation. I'm very, very pleased the studio put the movie out when they did. And we were able to reach so many people in parts of the world where, because of the response to the virus and the management of the crisis, they were able to safely reopen theaters and audiences came back to theaters. And, that was really wonderful and vastly exceeded our expectations going in, vastly. We're sitting here talking about the home video release December 15th, which is where we get to address the American public and get to release the film in the home, Los Angeles and New York and so forth. And that's very exciting too. It's not what we imagined, not what we expected, but that's the world we're living in this year.
It's also kind of interesting to me because it feels like it's exposing a little bit of, the hard reality of a lot of the movies that are making these top lists, these best of lists. They are not the engines that run Hollywood. They don't pay for anything. And more these movies, are just kind of these like crown jewels that like directors and executives like to polish and see, isn't this beautiful art? Like, this is why we're here. When in reality, like, it's $2 million down the drain Not to say that I don't love these movies, but like in reality, like something like Nomadland or like it should be available. It should be on Amazon. Like it should be one of those movies that, Sound of Metal, movie that I really liked. Like it's just like, these are movies that don't make money at the theater anyway. And so it's exposing like kind of like this truth of like, yeah, girl, like I'm so sorry, but how much money really was, Happiest Season gonna make at the theater?
Right.
How much movie really was, Crib Camp gonna make? Like, not that was gonna be released, but like, it's the hard truth. Like, hey, Hollywood, yeah, like, unless these movies are not being put up, I will say, God fucking help us. I'm gonna talk about Hillbilly Elegy now. Which is a movie that I don't think people should see. But people probably would have gone to go see it because it's Amy Adams and Glenn Close yelling at each other. But like that as a gag is not a reason enough for people to watch. And also not all movies that are like trying to win Oscars should have to be that.
It frustrated me that the conversation got boiled down to that sort of simplistic of a narrative. And it's like, you should not feel bad for taking care of yourself.
Right.
And for taking care of others.
Yeah, totally.
I always think, in some way, shape, or form, there's going to be a theatrical experience. It will persevere.
Yes, absolutely.
But we have, the moment. Also, I don't know. Maybe we don't need movies that are $350 million. That's just a thought. What a
thought, Gavin.
That's just a crazy thought that I just had.
Are you having some of my pizzeria? Because you were talking crazy talk.
Maybe I'm having a stroke.
I want my movies to cost $250 million minimum.
Always. Even if it's just an adaptation of Long Day's Journey into Night.
Yes.
I want that.
Starring Chris Evans in all the roles.
So I think when September comes around, and this is not to say, there were a bunch of things that were still released in August. Bill and Ted Face the Music and The New Mutants are like the only movies I've really seen in the quote unquote the theater, because I went to the drive-in to see them in August, which was a lovely experience.
I was gonna say, was that fun?
Oh my God, so much fun.
Yeah.
And didn't have to talk to anybody.
I would love to hear from any listeners who experienced drive-in theaters this year. I went to one, and it was for the New York Film Festival, and I will say it was not great because our radio was not working. Right. It was a whole fucking mess. But again, I'm the type of person that likes, like, I have friends who order their groceries. I like going to get groceries and shopping. Not that I'm doing a lot of shopping right now in stores, but like I have often enjoyed going grocery shopping just because the joy of walking around, doing a thing, the drag of life, get like, so I understand liking the idea of like, I remember I dressed up. I was like, I told Derek, like, we're dressing up, we're getting a car, we're driving to go see a movie. And so it's like, I understand why it was like, you saw photos of all these drive-ins that were sold out, packed with people.
Which is so funny that you dressed up, because I grew up with like in a town near a drive-in. And so like, it's something the kids do. Like, it's not certainly like, it's like, get the lawn chairs.
Yeah.
Sit out on so
we didn't have that. That's Gavin.
That's adorable.
It was adorable.
Try being a northern hillbilly.
Hillbilly Elegy 2.
The Gavin Mevius story. And like, I don't know, I guess that sort of really is the tale for the rest of the year. You get, the Netflix obviously holds their big releases. They're like awardsy movies that they're trying to get out towards the end of the year. So you have things like, I'm thinking of Ending Things coming out in late August, and The Trial of Chicago 7 coming out in September. And you have, Amazon trying to enter that realm with The Glorias.
Oh God, The Glorias.
Yeah. Apple TV getting in on the game with Sofia Coppola's On the Rocks. And I think that's where we're at now, is everybody's sort of releasing their awards movies
yep.
and kind of like pushing out whatever they have left that's like, I guess this was
Buzzy
this
and
year.
like,
Yeah.
Do you remember the first movie that HBO Max put out?
Was it American Pickle?
It was American Pickle. And the second one, I believe, was a movie that we talked about so many episodes ago in our Melissa McCarthy episode, Super Intelligence.
Yeah, that just came out. Yeah, not too long ago. Because there's other things in between there. There's like Unpregnant and whatnot.
I love Unpregnant.
Yeah, it's Unpregnant's really great. But anyways, go on.
But I remember we were talking about Super Intelligence way back in our episode, how it's been sitting around forever. HBO Max was like, we're going to keep it for us, not release it. And when American Pickle came out, I remember reading, they were like, why did you decide to go with HBO Max for this? And Seth Rogen was like, they don't have anything right now. And I thought, our movie's not going to get lost there. It would get lost on Netflix, which, you know, I guess is kind of smart. I don't know how many people watched American Pickle. Both you and I did, Gavin. It's a movie. It's fine.
Yeah.
It's cute.
All right, so what are you doing, man? You will take down Vanilla Vodka, or I will do violence. What? You will take down Vanilla Vodka, or I will do violence.
Look, buddy, I don't have time for all that.
I guess the last big gamble that sort of happened in the world of film this year was the last minute decision that HBO Max pulled to put Wonder Woman 1984 onto their streaming service on Christmas Day, the same day that Disney's going to put their second Pixar feature of this year, Soul, out. And it's one of those things where it's just like, oh, these are, you know, these are prestige films. These are what would have been in the theater for the holiday viewing audience.
Right.
And now they're in our living room. Soul will be on Disney Plus perpetually from the time it started. Wonder Woman 1984 is only going to be on for this month till January 25th, and then it'll come back whenever it gets its VOD release. But
it's funny to think about, you know, it's easy to rush into thinking like, this is the future, like this is all, it's going to happen. And certainly HBO Max has said that next year's all their shit's going to be streaming. But
except for possibly Dune. We'll find out when that happens.
But it's interesting to think, like, you know, to me, it makes sense. Like, it is a holiday. It's Christmas Day. Families are together to watch. I can't imagine a world, and maybe it's going to happen, but like, it's weird to think, okay, here's, I don't know, March 3rd, and here's Dune, you know, like on HBO Max. It doesn't, like, are we going to see more things where it's like the tied to a holiday, tied to an event type thing, as opposed to like dropping in kind of very quiet weeks? I don't know.
We know you're excited. This Secretary's Day. It's Godzilla versus King Kong.
Coming Arbor Day is, I don't know what the fuck's coming.
Wicked the Musical, the movie.
Wicked the Musical, the movie.
And so I think that really sort of brings us to the end of the year. It's such a weird year for film. I've had a lot of people that have come to me. I put out my top films of the year list, and
you do 15 films.
Yes, I do 15. I was going to do 20, but I didn't want it to be too long. I did mention in one of my posts that I saw 176 2020 releases. And I kept getting the same joke from people, which was like, there were 15 movies that came out this year. Yeah, bitch, there's movies coming out all the time.
Yeah,
but
a lot.
But I've never had the occasion to see that many. And honestly, I don't know if I want to do that again. But I liked having the option.
Right. Well, also, I will piggyback off of that comment to say that it's nice to have the option and also the access. To see some of these movies. You told me like days ago, you were like, you need to see Collective, and I was like, oh, I can just rent it on Amazon. Great. And I watched it and it fucking shook my soul. Like, it's one of my favorite movies of the year. Like, it's
great.
Incredible. And it's things like that. I mean, like we said, a movie Unpregnant, which also is one of my favorite movies of the year, is a movie that would have like come and gone and been lost to the universe, you know, wherever. But because HBO put a little like money and ads behind it, and because I was targeted by a Betty Who ad, here we are, you know? Like,
oh, dude, come on. The whole pregnancy mystery bullshit thing is not my fault. I threw the thing in the dumpster.
I need your help, and I don't have anywhere else to go.
I'm listening.
Okay, I know we're not, like, close anymore.
True.
And I'm probably the last person that you want to help.
Accurate.
But you have a car.
Oh, there it is.
Trust me, if I could just go somewhere in town, or to St. Louis even, I wouldn't even be here.
Where?
You know, to get the thing, the procedure.
Whoa.
My one complaint with all these films being on streaming services, and by the way, R.I.P. Quibi. So sorry. Sorry.
Yeah,
Quibi.
Rested in pieces.
Yeah. 10-minute pieces that you can watch either vertical or horizontal. I don't know if a lot of streaming services were advertising the right things, or because like I barely, and I keep my ear to the ground when it comes to film stuff. Like, I barely knew that there was a Meryl Streep, Steven Soderbergh movie coming to HBO Max.
Yeah.
Like,
you were, like, on the floor, ear to the ground.
Yeah, I was like, Meryl, where? And so, I don't know. I would say it's one of those things where I think the advertising field of a lot of these streaming services got used to the idea that people were going to be home, that they were going to see these pop up on their streaming service, and so they didn't necessarily have to go as hard on advertising, which is a huge money drain as it is,
right?
But also, like, I don't know, I just feel, I like knowing these things.
Right. I mean, Jesus, for the Meryl Streep movie, God, but like even for other things that, you know, are truly diamonds in the rough, that, you know, would we ever have heard about Dick Johnson Is Dead if it had not been,
I know,
you know, like, kind of buzzy, and that's you and me who watch movies a lot and keep our ear to the ground. But I don't think a majority of people know that this weird but very cool and moving documentary is available on Netflix. I don't know. I would even argue.
It's funny. I'd been looking forward to that. Do you remember last year? We talked about it on last year's episode, like right before we recorded, Netflix dropped, like, they're like, these 60 movies are coming to our streaming platform next year. And Dick Johnson's Dead is one of them. And I'm a huge Kristen Johnson fan because I love Camera Person,
yes,
which is her previous film. But like, yeah, once again, that's because I'm a crazy person who files that stuff away.
Well,
and
it's like, you know, Netflix, what ads did we see? We saw ads for Hillbilly Elegy. We saw ads for The Prom. And that's like, you know, because Nicole Kidman
and I think The Old Guard. And I think those were the really big ones that they, because even the Five Bloods, I remember vaguely seeing. We
also saw, you know, to all the boys I've loved before too. Like, it's proven things that are, you know, that are going to trend XYZ. But then on the reverse of that, HBO Max, once again, you know, Let Them All Talk, Unpregnant. Really the only thing I saw advertisement for was American Pickle and Supercomputer, or Super Intelligence. Supercomputer. Listen, I'm not watching that James Corden drivel. They tricked me once with The Prom. I'm not doing it again. Should we have a segment, 1-star review collectively? James Corden gets the Louie's 1-star review for the entire year. Everything he did touches. Hate it so much.
And you know what? Just for fun, throw in Cats. Sure, it was last year, but there was still a lot of screenings of it when theaters closed.
But he didn't pay enough for that, okay?
Yeah.
Instead,
we did.
Yeah.
We collectively did.
Yeah. I do not like at all.
So we're going to get into our top films of the year and some of the films that we didn't like as much. But before we do, I would like to introduce a new segment specifically for a year and wrap up episodes in the honor of the late, great Aretha Franklin. I would like to call this new segment Beautiful Gowns.
Beautiful Gowns.
It's beautiful gowns.
A lot of beautiful gowns.
And what this is we're just going to tell you about a couple movies that we saw that were not good, but they're pretty to look at.
Beautiful gowns.
Louis, what was your beautiful gown of the year?
Well, I texted you this earlier and I said, you know, my beautiful gown of the year is Wonder Woman 1984. This is like lovely,
Very good.
Lovely to watch. Good. You know, I'm happy for her. Wonder Woman looks like she's thriving.
Yeah.
Stylish, fun-ish. She learns how to fly. The jet's there.
There's some digital fur technology.
Yes.
Which you predicted would be the hot thing in 2020, and sure enough, showed up.
Coming hot. Beautiful gowns. I can't say that I thought the movie was good. I don't understand how the power of wishes is more powerful than Wonder Woman or whatever.
It's an allegory, Louie.
Sure, fine. Beautiful gowns. I love Pedro Pascal, like Kristen. They're, you know, lovely people. Even the stranger guy who Chris Pine invaded, lovely to look at.
He loves invading them.
That was a weird word for me to choose, huh?
Yeah, just go with it.
I mean, no one's made me laugh like this in such a long time. I mean, it's true, I don't get out much socially, but...
You don't get out?
No, really. No.
I'm sorry, I'm just surprised because you just seem like the kind of person who's like always out. Like people are asking you to go out all the time and you live out and you're just out. Like you never get in. You just seem like you'd be really popular. And I would know because I've never been popular.
You haven't? You're so personable, so free.
Okay, so Gavin, what was your beautiful gowns of the year?
My beautiful gown of the year was Mulan.
Oh, okay. Good pick.
You know, not a lot of reason for its existence.
No.
Other than very happy when there's a minority-led film.
Yes.
That it's all Asian actors. Love that. So good. I actually think the lead in the film, Liu Yifei, was so good as Mulan, and I really did enjoy that. I love Donnie Yen. I love Gong Li. Jet Li's briefly in it. Great, beautiful. Everybody looked gorgeous. You know, they're wearing their outfits. She's binding her breasts.
Wow.
It's saving her from getting
yes.
arrows.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Instead of Mushu, you get a sorceress. I thought she was interesting. She had great, not just beautiful gowns, but beautiful crowns.
Oh, wow.
Bone crowns and scales. And yeah, just wonderful. Did it really prove its existence to me, much like most of the Disney remakes, which was funny because that was your 1-star review of last year. Yeah. All of the Disney remakes.
Yes.
I would think that I feel like this falls in that category. But hey,
beautiful
so
gowns.
Much fun to look at.
Yeah, beautiful gowns. Horrible. Didn't they like thank this?
Oh, yeah. Also, terrible politics.
Terrible politics.
Supporting a possible attempt at genocide.
Yes.
Yeah.
Disney could have really worked harder on that, ma'am.
Yeah.
Especially since they had the time.
Just a little, yeah.
They had the time.
A little deeper digging.
Yeah, this is...
That's all we're asking for.
Yeah.
Insult me again and you'll taste the tip of my blade.
Lower your sword.
What?
But beautiful gowns.
It's beautiful gowns.
Can I really quickly say that my second runner-up for beautiful gowns is the Glorias? Just because Alicia Vikander and Julie Taymor really are just, you know, giving you visuals. The movie to me is a mess, but you know, visuals, beautiful gowns.
Beautiful gowns.
It's beautiful gowns.
Why don't we move into our picks? Why don't we start with our 1-star reviews of the year?
Excellent. Let's do that. Oh, what a year.
What a year.
Gavin, how do you do this? Do you have like a list of movies that you are like, these are my 1-star honeys all of the year?
Oh, baby, of course. Of course I do.
Okay.
This is not my first rodeo.
Right. You are a professional.
Exactly.
Let's do our bottom 3, if you will.
Okay. I do want to start the segment as I feel like I always sort of start this segment by saying that this is not a haters podcast. We're not really a call out podcast. We're not here to make anybody feel bad. We know it takes a fucking lot to make a movie. Mm-hmm. There's so many things that go into it, all the way down to the caterers. So we're just talking about purely our objective opinion. And we're not saying like, oh my God, shoot this movie off the planet. Though some of them, maybe we'd be better off for it. But So we're going to do a nice little bottom 3.
Yeah, you can still be a fan of someone and not like a movie. Like,
oh, absolutely. So my third least favorite film that I saw this year was a little film called The Turning.
Okay.
The Turning came out at the very beginning of the year, and it is a very loose adaptation of the Henry James Turn of the Screw, which, if you remember in our Ghosts on Film episode, I named The Innocents my favorite ghost movie. Same subject material.
Okay.
Yeah.
Source text.
Yes, exactly. This starred Mackenzie Davis, who I love, and she's playing the governess of these 2 children, played by Finn Wolfhard and Brooklyn Prince. And she moves into their mansion, Bly Manor, to take care of them. But there's some ghosts. But unlike any other version of Turn of the Screw, no ambiguity here. There's some fucking ghosts. Or, actually, is Mackenzie Davis insane? It's really bad. It's like textbook how not to make a horror movie. It's constant jump scares. It's one of those films that stops and then you're like, wait, was that the end?
Yeah.
And you're just like, what?
I hate that.
Yeah.
And those are movies that like want you to feel like you're just too dumb. You didn't get it.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, I got it. It was bad.
Mm-hmm.
My second least favorite film of the year would be the Shudder original Scare Package.
Ooh.
Now,
I'm sensing a theme, Gavin.
Let me tell you, anthology films are not easy.
Okay.
I get it. Because every anthology film is only as weak as its weakest entry. But this was about 6 weak entries, all stitched together very poorly. And I don't want to get too far into it, but I will say the final story, Joe Bob Briggs shows up as himself. And I was like, oh, this is just a commercial for Shudder.
Yeah.
And I turned it off.
Wow.
I was like, I've had it officially. And so that would bring me to my number 1-star review of the year, which is Blumhouse's Fantasy Island.
Okay, yes, I am aware that this movie does exist. Yes.
Yes, this is a movie you have heard of. It came out towards the very beginning of the year. It is actually one of the highest grossers of the year. It is the number 10 highest grosser of the year with $27 million.
Wow.
And it is a takeoff of the old TV show Fantasy Island,
which is not a horror series. It is a regular, like when you think of Fantasy Island, it's fun. It's loosey-goosey. It's an island.
But this is like Fantasy Island. You go there and your wishes come true, but there's a twist. It's a very
It's Wonder Woman.
Yeah, exactly. It's
the plot of Wonder Woman.
It's a monkey's paw situation island. And yeah, it just is not good. It's so much cliche. It's trying to do so much with so little. And I just really, I mean, there's zombies. There's, I don't know. It's not worth your time. It's, stars Michael Pena. And unfortunately has Maggie Q in it. I fucking love Maggie Q and Ryan Hansen from Veronica Mars.
Yeah.
Like these are people like I want only good things for.
Right.
But no, babies, this is not it.
I'm a PI. Client offered me a big old payday to figure out what happens here and how. Wants the power of the island for himself. I booked a stay 3 weeks back. Skeptical at first, but then my fantasy started. I saw my daughter who I'd lost years ago. It was beautiful. But then it got all twisted. Became a nightmare. Work found my sat phone and destroyed it before I was able to call for help. He knew everything.
Gavin, is it normal or like what's this trend of your 1-star reviews all being horror movies? Like tell me like.
Well, the funny thing is I really like horror movies.
I know.
And we've sort of talked about this before. And maybe I judge them too harshly, and perhaps that's my own flaw. But I gotta say, because I really like having a horror movie in my top.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a couple this year and I was very pleased, but I think part of it is I think people think horror is very easy, that it's, you just need to sort of get that visceral scare out of people and that's it. And so they don't really push themselves further in any direction. But, everything you make, every piece of art you make is political and maybe should say something and doesn't necessarily have to say the most brilliant thing and these 3 movies especially just feel like they were put together to have something that existed and not. Yeah, I said it last year too. I hate the concept of people that are like, oh, just go in there and turn your mind off and just enjoy yourself. And it's like, no, I'm not interested in that. Right. That's not the way I consume media. But honestly, if you go just a little further up my list, it's not all horror movies. I mean, my 4th least favorite film of the year was Kajillionaire, which was Miranda July's latest movie.
Yep.
I know a lot of people who really liked it, so take me at a grain of salt, I guess. It just didn't do anything for me. I did not like the performances. I thought it was uncontrollably dour, and I do not care for that sort of cartoony, negative presentation of people. Yeah, exactly.
I watched it and I was like, it was weird because I was reading about Evan Rachel Wood's astounding performance and Gina Rodriguez's performance. And I was like, I like both these people, but what?
I mean, in all honesty, and once again, I also really like Evan Rachel Wood, and I think she's really brilliant in the things that she says. But in this movie, her performance is just doing this voice. Yeah, I was just like, oh my god,
it's that voice in a jacket, like a tracksuit. Yeah. I don't get it.
And my other one, like I said, that's not a horror movie. If you just go up a little further, is Stardust, which is the movie that was made about David Bowie that couldn't use any of the David Bowie music. And yeah, it's so bad. And my review of it was literally David Bowie in the afterlife. Fuck my drag, right? Yeah.
Okay, when you said Stardust, I was like, wait, the movie with Daredevil in it?
No. That's fun.
That's
I like
fun
that
movie.
one.
He's hot in that. He's always hot.
But Louie, what are your bottom 3 of the year?
Okay, so my bottom 3 of the year. Let's get into it. My third least favorite movie of the year is Amazon's Sela and the Spades, directed by Tyarisha Poe. She also, wrote the screenplay. This movie is available on Amazon Prime. You can watch it now. But please, this is a black woman who wrote and directed this movie. It's a movie about these factions that run these factions of high school students run this private high school, and they're all very one of them is in charge of drugs. One of them is in charge of, I don't know, gossip. It's very silly and YA, but I don't know, truly just filtered through adults who think that this is how teens act, I guess. This movie just reminded me of it's someone trying to do the Dear White People, but a lot worse. I love Dear White People.
I also saw this movie, and I think I told you it reminded me a lot of Brick. But the thing that I think is brilliant about the movie Brick is its sort of commentary on film noir. And this movie didn't feel like it had much to say about anything.
Right. It's to me, it just felt like both. It's in a weird place of both treating kids too much like adults and also not respecting kids enough. It felt so fucking try-hardy, kids can be fucking mean and are so crazy because moms are tough on kids sometimes. I was like, nice try, I guess. This is a YA novel I do not want to read. So that's Sela and the Spades. My second least favorite movie of the year is, in fact, Hillbilly Elegy. I could not believe what I was watching when I started to watch it. I think I already have a very intense distaste for romanticizing poverty. I think it's irresponsible and stupid, especially coming out of the mouth of very glamorous Hollywood people, fucking Ron Howard telling me that I should and especially when it rings so false, it rings so false. And I know this is based on a book and that this writer is problematic for whatever reasons. I think both you and me, Gavin, don't come from like big towns, do not lead such glamorous lives. And so are familiar, I would say more familiar with stories about poverty than the Gossip Girl of it all. And I don't appreciate and think it's just so wrong to try and like show those liberal Hollywood people that this is what it really is like. It's when you just don't get it, especially comparing it to another movie like, say, Nomadland, which isn't exclusively about poverty. I would say not like Hillbilly Elegy.
And it like definitely tries to distance itself from
but it feels like the filmmaker and even Frances McDormand understand these characters, are not casting judgment or aspersions, whereas this movie, and I'm only talking about this movie, removed from the book and that text, it feels so just gross. I don't have anything to say about Amy Adams and Glenn Close other than lol. I do believe that there are hard and wonderful stories about families that are battling addiction and kids who are trying to make their way out of hard circumstances and make something for themselves. But this movie just is not that. It's so filtered through, I don't know, like Instagram filters that it's not real. It's just not. I don't buy it for a second.
Can I share? I didn't see the movie, so and I sort of refuse to because I mean I don't know. I'm not made of time, but can I share a personal anecdote from my life?
Yes.
So my dad was from Missouri, but he lived all over the South. But every other summer, we would go spend a significant portion of the summer in Missouri with his family because he didn't see them very often. And I remember driving around with him one time when I was maybe like 12 or 13, and he was from a 6-block town. And I don't exaggerate this. This is a very small town in Missouri. We're driving past, and there was a person sitting on their porch, and they were shirtless in overalls playing a banjo. And I got highfalutin, Northern New York, because it's so funny because when you get there, they all treat you like you're from New York City. And I was not from New York City. I was from bumblefuck North, like Adirondack Mountains. And, I was like, look at that hillbilly.
Yeah.
And my dad was like, that's your cousin. So yes, I get it. Yeah. That's the stock I'm from.
Yeah.
So.
Right. And so just to say Hillbilly Elegy is, I don't even know that they were trying hard. I don't even know what the point was. Even people who enjoyed the book and you agree with this, I mean, he's a Republican character, it's very pull your boots up by your bootstraps, whatever. Even if you are pro that agenda in life, I don't think this is a good story about that anyway. Like even if you are like this, it's all around not good. But anyway, moving on. My number one least favorite movie of the year is The New Mutants.
The Moo Newtons.
The Moo Newtons.
Yeah, it's really fucking bad. Okay, good. I got really, because it's like maybe 2 more up my list, but yeah, it's a miserable time.
It's bad on so many levels. It is working overtime and overdrive to say fuck you as a moviegoer, as a comic book lover, as a queer person. Like it's just like every which fucking way as me as like a minority person. Like it's just like everything and not good. The New Mutants is the last Marvel movie that Fox made.
Right.
It has been cut and recut and reshot to death. Was finally mercifully released late summer, I believe. And Gavin, you saw it in the drive-thru, I believe, right?
Yeah, the drive-in, not the drive-thru. Though I wish it lasted only the length of a drive-through.
Right. And I just couldn't believe number one, I think all around, maybe with the exception of Maisie Williams, the performances are not good. The characterizations are not good. I think that it's offensive what they did to Dr. Reyes, the character. She's this Afro-Latina doctor, and in the movie she is she's played by a Latina woman, but she's not, the director is the guy who gave us The Fault in Our Stars.
The Fault in Our Stars?
Yes.
Yeah.
And he's said some very stupid, fucked up shit about the way one of the cast members, Sunspot, was supposed to be this like Afro-Brazilian character, and he basically just like cast a hot dude who looked like an asshole, I guess. I even think Queen Little Doyenne of the Year, Anya Joy Taylor, is not really good. She looks the part.
But that Russian accent was so bad.
But I was like, what is going on, Miss Hot Topic, Mama?
Take Danny to a safe place, and I'll take care of this bear. What are you going to do? I'm going to play with it.
And even Blue Hunt, who, God bless, I just didn't get it. I don't think the movie got it.
No.
And especially when the New Mutants...
Listen, when your movie fucking starts with a made-up indigenous tale that's like, there's a Native American saying, I was like, I'm out already.
Yeah.
You've lost me. Sorry, Josh Boone, I'm out.
Even to like the point of like, I've never seen a comic book like action movie with such little action. Even they spent all that money on, I don't know, Anya's arm and that demon bear. The demon bear looked cool, but like, did they fight it? I don't know. I think they just rolled around it.
And it's also one of those movies that, and listen, Wonder Woman's going to take heat for this too, that when it comes to the big CG battle, they set it in utter darkness.
Yeah.
So you can't tell how bad it looks.
Yeah. It's all, it's like
nothing annoys me more because I'm just like, okay, well, I guess there's.
I'm not going to see this.
I guess film. Yeah, I guess film was a visual medium.
Yeah. Now it's like a feeling. Yeah, the New Mutants. There is a queer plotline. They love us watching fucking Wolfsbane watching Buffy, and like, oh look, Willow's gay. Me too. I mean, good for them for at least showing them kiss, but. No. New Mutants are so important, in the canon of like comics and for being like these alternative weirdos. And I wish we could maybe, see the actual like horror version of this and not the weird like rom-com horror action garbage fiesta that it turned into. But alas, I will not call for the Josh Boone cut.
Well, I think we've buried enough of 2020. Why don't we move into our tops of the year? All right, we're in our 5-star reviews. We're going to talk about the films that we loved. I put out a video every year detailing my top films of the year. I did 15. I really had 20. I'm going to tell you about 3 of them.
Okay.
Because I think that's only fair.
Yeah.
I'm going to start at number 3 with Shirley. Shirley was a Hulu release. It is a Josephine Decker film. Josephine Decker directed a film a couple years ago that was my number 1 film of the year called Madeline's Madeline. This is a fictional adaptation. It's based off a book about Shirley Jackson, famous horror writer. The book is a fiction. It's not a real biography. Shirley Jackson had many children. She does not have children in this story at all. It's also a loose sort of adaptation of one of Shirley Jackson's book, Hangs a Man. This is sort of my favorite type of movie where you take, like 3/5 of the truth, 2/5 of lies. You sort of mix them up together. You give sort of a fantastical version of what's going on. is there something creepier going on? There's lots of literary references to Shirley Jackson's other works in it, including Haunting of Hill House. There, so you get sort of this portrait of this sort of damaged woman who is also very much in control of her being. This young couple comes to stay with her and her husband. Her husband is a professor at the college. In real life, her husband constantly cheated on her. And so he's a bit of a philanderer here. She starts having a romantic relationship with the young woman of the house. Ooh. It's a little creepy. It's very seductive. And it's all around just a fucking good time.
You just described me. It's so crazy. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I did. Highly recommend Shirley. It's on Hulu. My second favorite film of the year was First Cow. First Cow is a Kelly Reichardt film. Love Kelly Reichardt. There's a couple of her movies I don't love, but for the most part, I do really love her.
But you love First Cow.
I do. I love that cow.
Give me that cow.
Let me see the cow.
I will say the cow is gorgeous in the movie.
Absolutely.
I was like, okay, stunned. She's like the third best actress on stage right now.
Kelly Reichardt's films are sort of all move at their own pace. This movie really breathes. It sort of lets you feel, in a way, it's sort of an immersive experience into what life was a bit like back in the day and age in which there were no computers and no phones in your pockets. To this sort of slower pace of things. It's a story about a man who doesn't necessarily fit in. He befriends a Chinese immigrant and they decide to start going into business for each other, baking, but he needs milk. So they're sneaking onto a rich man's property in the middle of the night and stealing the milk. That's the basic. However, there's a lot of layers there. At once you're getting this great story about friendship and bonding between these two men and the love they share for each other.
They're boyfriends. They're old-time boyfriends, okay?
They genuinely are. On the other hand, and I don't feel like enough people talked about this, you're sort of getting a really interesting film about the lie of the American dream. And you're getting this sort of tale of these two people who believe that if they do all these things, if they work towards it, they'll get enough money and then they'll be the ones in charge. And it's sort of, no. It just never was going to happen for them.
Yeah.
It just wasn't, because the system was rigged against them from the jump.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really interesting thing. And like I said, I haven't seen enough people sort of talking about this lie. It's, I don't want to evoke the phrase, but it's the idea of greatness in America that we've sort of built this foundation on. That's kind of false.
Yeah, I mean, the people that are rich were always going to be rich, and in this movie, the people that were going to succeed are always going to succeed. And
right.
And this man who, he's in the system that has failed him. They are never going to be, the American dream. Or they're never going to attain that.
And I also sort of really love, and I think it's a really difficult thing to sort of portray Indigenous people in a very respectful manner when you're not an Indigenous person, and it's a really sort of but I love the idea that she has also presented the Indigenous characters in this movie who are sort of like, well, I guess we just gotta play inside this system. We don't really have a choice.
Yeah.
And one of my favorite moments in the film is when two non-main characters, both Indigenous women, are talking to each other on a couch and sort of commenting on how ridiculous the sort of having to get dressed up in airs to talk to white people is. And I don't know, there's a lot of amazing moments in this movie and a lot of deep analysis, a lot more going on than I think, even though it is making a ton of top tens. I don't want to say people aren't thinking hard enough about it. They definitely are. But I think there's so many layers there to watch and absorb and really think about.
This movie also, to me at the end, I was just, I couldn't believe that I was suddenly on pins and needles. I was like, oh my God, what's going to happen? But the cleverness of this movie to not give it all away. It's one of those movies where it's not saying you're not smart enough like the other movies you mentioned, this is a movie that's kind of just not showing their hand in a very teasing but knowing way, kind of leading you along but not giving the whole cookies. So yeah, I just watched you watched First Cow like in February.
Yes.
I watched it like last week. It is available on Amazon to rent.
It's worth your time completely. And my number one film of 2020, and a film I definitely think you should see, is a little movie called Bloody Nose, Empty Pockets. Bloody Nose, Empty Pockets is a film that came out on July 7th. It is a hybrid documentary. Essentially, it's a film about this bar called the Roaring Twenties. It's their last night open. It's a bar in Las Vegas. And it's really about all the people that inhabit this bar, the sort of barflies, the regulars, the people that work at the bar. And it's just a peek glimpse into one night of what's happening. It was directed by the Ross brothers, who are they're known to making these really interesting films. They teamed with David Byrne to make Contemporary Color a couple of years ago. And the thing about this movie that you don't really realize is that it is curated.
I was going to say, you flew by hybrid documentary without nary a care in the world, Gavin. Now, when you say hybrid documentary, you really mean...
It's a fiction. It's the Roaring Twenties bar doesn't exist. The movie is set in Las Vegas. The bar that exists in the movie is set in Las Vegas. The film was shot in New Orleans. Mm-hmm. The characters in the film, they are improving and playing their roles.
This movie, I was talking to you about. I saw this. I love it. It's very, if you think too hard about like the actual pieces, it will hurt your brain. But like as a theatrical experience, watching it is stunning. Just because it just doesn't feel like a movie. It feels like you are fully, I don't know, like peeking behind the curtain a little bit at these very real people. I thought that these filmmakers auditioned like normals, like mostly normals. There are some actors. Like
there are some actors, and I mean that's what I mean. Yes, there are some quote unquote normals, but they're acting. They're playing a part. They're essentially playing themselves, you know, in some way, shape, or form. But I think what's interesting about it too is that you get these very real moments, and it's so funny because you sort of read what you want out of it. Mm-hmm. And I was having this conversation with you through text. Normally we don't really talk that much about episodes, but this we got very excited about this episode. And I think the thing that works is that, you know, these filmmakers in this IndieWire article by Eric Cohn, they talk about how they really wanted to create this sense of terror, this idea of like what's going to happen to these people, what as the clock's ticking, like where are these people going to go and whatnot. The Lawson review for Variety, he said, you know, he's like, does it paint like a creative problem by like encouraging the alcoholism of these people and they're lying to themselves about seeing each other again, they're going to find a new place. And I walked away from it feeling very hopeful because I saw it as the end of something in these people's lives that would lead to a new beginning, hopefully. And that might just be my naivete or me just being a hopeful person. But I was like, wow, this is like watching a family who knows they're not going to see each other for a while, but will eventually find a way to come back together. And I walked away from it feeling completely refreshed. And I don't know, I just haven't seen a film like this in a long time. And it's really fascinating.
You gotta get out of here.
You gotta get out.
No. You shut up a second.
All right, what?
You gotta get out of here.
Out of where? This bar?
Yes.
My number 3 pick, I feel connects so well to this movie. And I feel so, can I just like...
Yeah, jump in.
Okay, so my number 3 movie is Nomadland, which to me, I watched Bloody Nose, Empty Pockets 2 days ago. I watched Nomadland yesterday. And they both had me in the same headspace of family. Chosen family. I don't know when I'm going to see you again, but I'll see you down the road. And they both had me thinking and feeling that type of way about, and on top of that, Nomadland is, as the credits rolled, I realized, Swanky is played by Swanky, Dave is played by David Strathairn. All of these people, besides Frances McDormand and David Strathairn, are themselves. They are themselves. And it, like Linda May was Linda May. And so thinking about Bloody Nose, Empty Pockets, these are real people. The lead character in the movie, what's his name?
Michael,
he says, I used to be an actor. And I remember I was like, I've definitely seen him before. And so he is an actor, and so there's a lot of truth in his performance, and it's such a loose, from what I understand, they were given like kind of prompts about what to talk about, but like it's such a loose thing. But you can see like the pain and hurt in the veteran who's talking about, not having a place for himself in the US. And then in Nomadland, you get kind of a similar moment from a veteran who is fled basically quote unquote normal daily life, and finding his place in the open road and with these other nomads. I just think, so Nomadland is starring Frances McDormand. She is a woman who, her husband has died, and the town that they used to live in, the mine that basically sustained the entire mine, or the town, the mine closed, and that zip code was discontinued. No one lives there anymore. And instead of finding a new home, she decides to go on the road and live out a van. And the movie's about just her meeting people. And I was also thinking that it connects to both movies. I think connect to First Cow, because all three of these movies are about the friendship of strangers. It's a risk to put yourself out there, especially when you're a certain age. Like, I was thinking about, oh my God, when I go to a bar, I don't want to talk to strangers. but that's the beauty of putting yourself out there. And when we could go to a bar and talk to a stranger and imagine you're going every day and you may build that relationship up. It's the same thing with Frances in the movie as Fern, building these relationships with these people. I was fully just moved and crying through Nomadland about sadness, but also about hope, like what you were saying, that they're no matter, and in Nomadland, it's not about this one place, but just our place here together, which I thought was very beautiful. And I definitely felt that ring true in Empty Nose, Bloody Pockets. My number 2 is, like I already mentioned before, is Collective, which
I'm so glad you said. It's funny because I got literally 10 minutes into Collective and I was like, Louie needs to see this movie.
Yeah, and you were fucking right. I really, really did.
And it's so good. I don't want people to think that because it wasn't in my top 15, it was my 16th favorite film of the year. So trust me, it was right there.
Yeah. What's wild is I rented it on Amazon. You can too. And there is one of the first comments is like, oh my God, this is so good. It's just like Spotlight. And I was like, ma'am. Collective is a documentary, which we need to talk about, what a great fucking year it was for documentary filmmaking. But we'll put a pin in that. Collective is a Romanian movie, a documentary about journalists who are uncovering this healthcare fraud after a deadly fire at a nightclub called Collective in Bucharest, Romania. And the movie starts off just really matter of fact, being like, there was this fire that happened. There was people died in this fire. And then there was 10 times more people died after this fire because they were at the hospital and died, who should not have died in any modern society, should have been okay, who had minor burns or serious burns, but in contained parts of the body. They were not, there is a character or I don't want to say a character. There is a woman in the movie who has severe body burns all over her body, lost, fingers and but she survived. And there's a heartbreaking moment where a dad says, my son was nowhere nearly as bad as burned as she is. And why did he die? So there's a big political upheaval, and there is this newspaper called the Sports Gazette, and they are just really digging deep into why these people had to die. And turns out the corruption that is really at the root of a lot of government and business in Romania were making the cleaner, the sprays and like
antiseptic.
Yes.
Like,
imagine anything that you would use to make sure that your scalpels and your hospitals are clean
and sterilized.
They were all diluted. And so the hospitals were crawling with bacteria. And this newspaper is just unrelenting, getting to the bottom of it. There's jarring, horrifying video. I will not spoil it for you, but seeing these journalists at work, this movie to me is maybe the most important movie like that anyone anywhere could see, because go ahead.
And I think the other interesting thing about it too is you're also experiencing what it's like to be, part of an interim government, because their government resigns and these technocrats take over, and they're just there for a year. And so there's a new health minister, and he's doing his best and slowly begins to realize that every step up the ladder is corrupt.
Right. And so like, I think the movie works on two levels. Like on one, educating and showing people truly like what like the hard work of journalism is. It is not sexy. It is not fun. It is hard and actual putting your life on the line to make people hear the truth. That is hard work. And I think that resonates everywhere, especially right now. Media is always under attack right now. And you see that happen in Collective. And then the second track is this new politician who's trying to make the lives of his community better, and seeing him slowly realize nothing I do is going to work and nothing I can do, because not only is it corrupt, but the corruption runs so deep that they're able to poison the minds of voters. It is a shocking movie. And, like I said, maybe the most important thing you could see, we are in the United States, we are very tentatively, hopefully breaking free from the tyranny that is like the Trump era and the full fucking, fog of the truth. And this movie just shows like what a razor thin edge that really is.
That's one of the things I just kept thinking too, where it's like, I just kept thinking throughout the movie, how did things get this bad? And then I fucking looked around.
Yeah.
And yeah.
They talk about like the Gorgon knot of he's saying, how can I make it? We need to make it where that these people cannot sell this product anymore. Why are these businesses still able to sell this product to hospitals? We should be able to say no. And his like assistant or whatever says, actually, we can't do that. There's a law that says XYZ. And he's like, well, that's fucking stupid.
Yeah.
Why can't, and he's like, we need to change that. It's truly horrifying. But yeah, that's Collective. You can rent it on Amazon. Directed by Alexander Nanau. It's incredible. But even though I think this is the most important movie of the year, it's not my favorite movie of the year. My favorite movie of the year is actually
Sonic the Hedgehog.
It's Sonic the Hedgehog. Can you believe
Charlotte
it?
Bronte's Sonic the Hedgehog.
No, my favorite movie of the year is the 40-year-old version on Netflix. And what I wrote down in my little comments section was Woody Allen found dead.
Oh, that's what so, 40-year-old version is Rada Blank's debut film.
Yeah.
She's basically, I feel like I'm stealing this from you, but I also really love this movie. She playing almost a version of herself.
Yep.
she's a playwright, and she was on the 30 under 30 list, and she just hasn't written anything since that's up to that esteem.
She's now teaching like after school theater programs in New York. This movie to me simultaneously is like the reasons why I love New York, but also really clearing up that most of New York is bullshit.
Yep.
And any most like awards like that, like 30 under 30, or, you know, making it to Broadway and the things you have to do. I mean, this movie is a lot about selling out as an artist, the things you have to do to be a successful artist. This movie, again, is, I think to me, kind of lifts the mirror of, there's a moment where they're like, oh my God, Black female theater makers are so hot right now. We need you. And it's, I don't know. Rada is such a light, she has such energy. I sat down and watched this movie and I thought, God, there's still so much of New York that I don't know. But I'm so happy that I'm happy this movie got made. This movie just like made me feel good. And I thought it's our first movie and was such a good, I was laughing, thinking about all the theater that I have seen, and the people that I've talked to my friends who love theater and how theater is made. This movie, the movie kind of follows her as she kind of sells out to write a play about gentrification, but falls into the trappings of, the gatekeepers who need her characters to be, quote, more Black. And there's a moment where they're like, oh my God, I read it and thought, is this even written by a Black person? And she is just like, you can see like she's boiling, and she finds an escape in rap.
Why my skin so dry? Why am I yawning right now? Why them AARP niggas sending shit to my house? This is 40.
She's an incredible talent, and I think the commentary on like kind of how bogus and bullshit a lot of the art world is incredible. And that was my favorite. Collective was powerful, and so is 40-year-old version. But this to me is just, it was nearer and dearer to me, I would say.
I absolutely love it, and it's funny because like I always feel bad comparing filmmakers because I think everybody's sort of on their own. But like, if Bloody Nose Empty Pockets is sort of like the Ross brothers making a lost Robert Altman film, this, as you mentioned, like Woody Allen Found Dead, but I also feel like this is Rada Blank making like a reinvigorated Spike Lee film.
Yes, absolutely.
And it had, those great elements of She's Gotta Have It in it. And I don't know, I genuinely love that movie. And the look of it too, the shooting it in the high contrast black and white. I don't know. I can't say enough good things about that. And I genuinely hope this leads to many more films written and directed by her.
Yeah. I mean, and the Woody Allen comparison is just that you can tell that this woman, this character, loved New York. It's just kind of this beautiful, glorious, somehow full of love, and yet just a really big takedown at the same time of this very, very silly city that we call New York City.
So those are all really great picks. Before we move into our fast forward and give a small look ahead into 2021 or what we hope for 2021, should we just redo our tops and our bottoms real quick?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, so my 1-star review goes to Blumhouse's Fantasy Island.
And my 1-star goes to Fox's and Marvel's The New Mutants. That was hard to say.
It really is. And my 5-star review goes to Bloody Nose Empty Pockets.
And my 5-star review goes to the 40-year-old version.
Let's get into our fast forward.
I think that we need to talk about documentary filmmaking this year, because I was thinking, like, why are there so many good documentaries that came out this year and that I was just so enthralled with? And it got me to thinking, just life truly is stranger than fiction right now. And the stories of our life I think are just so interesting. And so watching, Dick Johnson Is Dead, which is about losing and grief and, losing a loved one, and watching, even Bloody Nose, Empty Pockets, like these are all movies just that reflect back to us, like collective. It's, I don't know, for some, as much as we needed escape this year, it felt like a good time to also re-examine. You've talked about this before. Was it last year or 2 years ago? You said that, documentary filmmaking really like did it for you. I feel that way this year for me.
And I think that's definitely, it's one of those things where I think people forget because I think people see documentaries sort of as a small screen thing. There's so many docudramas, so many documentary shows out, even, smaller things like Dateline and whatnot that sort of do these exposés. And so people sort of relegate it to that. And I don't think they have to be a small screen thing for any reason at all. But I do think there is something comforting about sort of being able to sit at home and feel like you've learned something. And there's so many different types of documentaries that came out this year.
Totally.
As I mentioned, Bloody Nose, Empty Pockets definitely falls into that territory. Collective is another great example where that's a documentary about investigative journalism. I included a documentary in my top 10 called Songs of Repression, which was about a cult, a German cult that existed in Chile. And they, it was a documentary that was basically edited and shot like a horror movie. And I don't know. So there's so many interesting ways that you can present this information to people and get it out there, and so many ways to sort of play with the genre, and so many ways to sort of make it unique and really draw people in. And I think this was a year where people really sort of expanded that out and really found a way to do new things with it. I mean, this has been going on for a while, but like to get it out to the audience in a much larger way, shape, and form.
Yeah, and I think we've talked about earlier in the year, we talked about Crip Camp, and I just like fucking lost my shit at the end, towards the end of that movie. And again, like
which is a really great film, and probably is going to get buried towards the end of this year. But yeah, it's a good one to keep in mind.
Yeah, just like stories about ourselves, stories about people, the trauma that we've lived through, how we survive. I mean, Crip Camp, truly, I was like, how do you survive? How do you keep going? The challenges that we face as humans. And it's, I think going forward, I mean, no one knows what life is going to be like after the pandemic. No one knows when the pandemic is going to be like over for real. We'll be feeling the ramifications of that, and all of the, the protests that we had over the summer, I think, for a long time. And so I think we're looking forward, we're going to continue to get that. And this probably like is with the boom of true crime. There was a lot of true crime stuff that came out this year. That's a trend that's been going on for a couple years now. But I think now we're really at like, especially because of the access and because of the distributors, we're able to get so much good documentary filmmaking out there that doesn't just go kind of, because I remember a time when documentary filmmaking was truly, it felt like no one saw any of it. You couldn't find it at all. And now there's just so much good of it that it's hard to ignore, and it like demands to be seen, to not be ignored.
So I think going forward in 2021, I think for the first part of the year, it's going to be pretty much the same. I think it's going to be a lot of films sort of viewed at home and sort of experienced at home. And I don't think that's a bad thing. And I think it's eventually going to lead to a time in which we can get back to the theaters. And I'm not really upset about that. And hopefully we can when it's safe. But yeah, I'm optimistic.
Yeah.
Let's say.
Yeah, I think for me, like the two big things are documentary and stage shows. Like that's to me the big we got thinking about The Prom, which has our
I have to?
Which has enemy of the pod James Corden in it. This is a show that I watched on Broadway and I thought it was great, loved it. but made no money, lost tons of money, did not win awards, ran for maybe a year, probably less. There is no reason why that there should have been a movie about this, or a movie based on this Broadway show. But, you know, I keep thinking about, are there going to be more of these kind of, I don't mean to call it a B-list Broadway show. What I mean to say is like, it wasn't very successful. Are we going to see more of that? You know, the streamers are desperate and thirsty for content. We know we're getting Dear Evan Hansen, the musical, the movie, like, but are we also going to get, I don't know, like Once on This Island? Are we getting, you know, Percy Jackson? Are we getting Be More Chill? Those are musicals that like really didn't do anything, but you know, they're built in. We have stars. We have like, I think that in addition to me, I mean, in addition to next year, we're going to have In the Heights and West Side Story eventually come out. This new model of showcasing theatrical, Broadway caliber talent and storytelling in the film sense. So those are the two things that I'm looking forward to, and I think we'll see continue to grow and change as we maybe perhaps kind of get back to normal eventually.
It's nice to have something to look forward to, especially in this year of loss. We didn't even talk about all of the great people we lost this year.
Yeah,
and you know, Natalie Desselle-Reid and Chadwick Boseman, and you know, anybody from like Naya Rivera to Little Richard, you know.
Yeah.
It was a crazy year for losing celebrities, but also losing normal everyday people. And so it's nice to think about how we're eventually going to get to a point, hopefully, where things can sort of feel more, you know, I don't want to say status quo. I don't necessarily even want things to go back to the way that they were before, but like at least in a way that feels like, oh, society is back,
right?
And
also thinking about, you know, even we participated in, you know, watch parties, you know, being able to watch these movies with our friends. I talked about it earlier, you know, this idea that bringing the theater home. You and I were hosting with the podcast, you know, 10, 15 people watching, you know, burlesque, God help me. Like that is not something that I want to go away, and that I think theater and film is such a great way to build community. And I think, you know, we were able to find ways to continue doing that in these very hard times. And I think we're going to continue to do that. And, you know, God help us, once the pandemic is over and we're all safe and okay, we can have a watch party together. I'll go down to the IFC Center and have a drink and watch, I don't know, whatever, when it comes out with some friends and family. But until then, you know, like, movie making is still here with us. There are still great things to watch. There are still bad things to watch. I don't think that, even though the things are different, they are not, you know, gone. And like in Nomadland and like in Bloody Noses, Empty Pockets, like, we'll see you again. We'll down the road. There is a future for us all.
I couldn't have said it better myself, so I'm going to pretend I did. all the things Louie just said, I said them.
Me.
But I think that closes the chapter that was 2020. Here's to a better 2021. And now we're going to tell you all the places you can find us online. So if you want to tweet at us, we're at The Mixed Reviews.
We're also on Facebook. Just type in The Mixed Reviews.
If you want to send us an email, you can do so at reviewsmixed@gmail.com.
We're also on Instagram. Just type in _mixed_reviews.
If you want to listen to us or our other episodes, as you've been doing, you can listen to us on a myriad of podcast apps. We're on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, Google Play, iHeartMedia, Audible. We're everywhere.
We're everywhere. There's a cornucopia of places for you to find us, gals.
And if you would be so ever kind, please hop on over to Apple Podcasts and leave us a 5-star rating and a review. We'll read the review on the show.
Yeah, I'll give you a little shout out. You deserve that in the new year. That's the energy we're giving back. We also have merch on Redbubble if you want that. Keep your eyes and ears out for some special bonus episodes coming your way. And also keep an eye on our Twitter where we'll put our poll up. We put that up for every episode. So yeah, thank you guys so much. It's truly been a year of all of us together. Me and Gavin have been flying by the seat of our pants. Like, hey, do you think people will want to hang out and watch movies with us on Netflix, like watch party? And you guys did. And when we thought, oh, well, people want to buy mugs and shirts, and you guys did. So truly, thank you. It's been a challenging year. Also, just thinking about, Gavin, it like really makes my heart just like swell a million sizes. Thinking about the people who found us, when they searched for Angela Bassett or when they searched for, their favorite actors. We really, really appreciate that. And I want you guys to know, if you've sent us a message about ideas for a show, I want you to know me and Gavin have talked about it.
Absolutely.
And they are on the docket. Unfortunately, we can only make these so fast, but we have the list of suggestions like locked and loaded, ready to go. So in 2021, some of your recommended subjects are coming soon.
Absolutely. And, as much as we hope that we've been able to help you during the pandemic, you guys have really helped us during the pandemic. We love doing this. We love being able to come together every 2 weeks to talk about films and have this conversation, not just with each other, but with you. So thank you all seriously for listening and for participating and for being part of this. It really does mean a lot to us.
So with that, I guess, cheers.
Cheers.
A late cheers to 2021 and to us and to our listeners.
Good night.
Bye.
Yeah, ding dong. My love for you is going wide and long. Yeah, ding dong. I swell and burst when I see what we become. Yeah, ding dong. Come, my baby, we can get love on. Yeah, ding dong. When I see you, I feel a ding ding dong.
Oh, brain work.
Brain.
Brain. I don't know why I'm Bob Dylan. Brain, why won't you work for me?